All right, the big news in the NFL continues to be the Robert Kraft solicitation of prostitution case. Yesterday, out of the blue, on a Monday morning, the NFL issued a new statement as it relates to the charges against Kraft, reminding everyone that the personal conduct policy is indeed in play. And we already knew that, but the NFL felt compelled for whatever reason to let us know that our personal conduct policy applies equally to everyone in the NFL. We will handle this allegation in the same way we would handle any issue under the policy. We are seeking a full understanding of the facts while ensuring that we do not interfere with an ongoing law enforcement investigation. We will take appropriate action as warranted by the facts. So I thought immediately, why are they doing this? And I think that the reason was they want everyone to know that they're not going to issue any judgment, any ruling, any punishment until the criminal case ends, whenever that may be. And who knows when it may end. All we've seen from Kraft so far is that he categorically denies the allegations. That came through a spokesperson on Friday. He's hired a lawyer in Florida. There's no reason to believe at this point he's not going to fight this tooth and nail as long as it takes to exonerate himself. And if that's the case, if this plays out over weeks, months, years, who knows how long it will take, the NFL is not going to do anything until it's over. And that I think was the purpose of yesterday's statement. Also, I think they wanted to get out ahead of the affidavit that came out yesterday that had some specific details that we're not going to go into. You can find them online if you want to see them. But the details of what ultimately resulted in the 2 counts of solicitation of prostitution, that came out yesterday at a press conference, and also the documents available. So maybe the NFL felt compelled to get that out there to avoid what quite possibly could have been, Big Cat, a push by people in the media to say, you have to do something right now, NFL. The NFL is making sure everybody understands, no, that's not how we do it. We wait until the criminal case ends.
So the interesting story to me here now becomes what the NFL will do in terms of suspension for Robert Kraft and what they will do in terms of a fine. That's maybe lesser of the case because at the end of the day, I don't really care what happens to Robert Kraft's money, just like I didn't really care what happened to Jim Irsay's money. But Jim Irsay gets suspended 6 games for his DUI arrest, and it's fine because no one even notices that he's not there. This is different because the Patriots have won the Super Bowl. They will have the banner raising. People will watch it. It will probably be the Sunday Night Football game. It's actually lucky that the NFL had already floated. There's a possibility it's going to be Bears-Packers to start the season, so they don't have this be the conversation in Game 1. But the question to you, Mike, as a former lawyer, is do you think Robert Kraft is going to sit here and say, let's get this figured out right now so it doesn't just keep hanging over everything? Or will he try to draw it out so that he can make sure that he's part of that ceremony when they do raise their 6th banner in the first week of September?
Yeah, I mean, all we know right now is he's categorically denied the allegation. And if he does decide he's going to fight this, then he's going to be around until it's resolved. And if they say, hey, let's delay this, and you get a skilled defense lawyer, that lawyer will know all the tricks, all the things. And I don't mean trick in a negative way. They'll know how to advance the interest of their client. They'll know how to fulfill the direction they've been given. And if the direction is make this take as long as it possibly can, they'll know how to do that. And if Kraft wants to fight this, and if the determination is, you know what, I'm going to stand up in the face of this thing and I'm going to fight it, and let's make it take as long as it takes. I have a right to a speedy trial. I don't want one. Let's take our time with this. Let's get continuances. Let's build delay into this because I want to be around for the 2019 season. That's his prerogative. Now, there's one thing here, and we talked about this on the radio side, as it relates to trying to get an idea of what the NFL wants from him. If the NFL wants him to wrap it up quickly, and there's kind of a wink and a nod from the league office that if you do wrap this up quickly, if you plead to lesser included offense or one of the 2 counts, and whatever it is, something less than pleading guilty to everything, but you wrap it up, you plead to something, and it all goes away from a criminal justice standpoint, then here's what your punishment will be. If he's expected to do that, or if there's any effort to get him to do that, think back to 2015 with Deflategate, because when he decided not to push the issue on behalf of the Patriots, he abandoned the appeals. There was potential for litigation that wasn't pursued. His thought was, and he said this after Tom Brady got suspended 4 games, he thought by standing down, he was securing more lenient treatment for Tom Brady. So either he misread the room 4 years ago, or the room was misrepresented to him. But to the extent that he remembers that, and surely he does because the rest of us do, he's going to be leery about doing any wink-nod deals with the NFL this time around. That's not to say it can't happen, but that's going to be a factor in all of this as well. And if something does happen quickly, if it does go away in the next few weeks, he's going to be making a leap of faith that whatever someone at 345 Park Avenue has told him is going to be the punishment, that maybe that won't be the punishment and maybe there'll be something more stringent. So nobody knows what the commissioner is going to do. I've also suggested that maybe Kraft will impose on himself a punishment that will be sufficiently stringent that anyone would say, well, yeah, that's not too lenient. He is selecting his own suspension. He's selecting his own fine, taking this off the commissioner's plate. Because really, say what you will about the commissioner. He didn't ask for this one. And he's in a tough spot now where he's got to balance those who would say you're being too lenient versus those who would say that you're going too far. So if there is a way that Kraft could fashion his own punishment, that would actually help the commissioner out of a very delicate spot.
So my other question is, how much do the other owners play a part in a case like this where they have to figure out, even if he's completely, free of all charges and walks free and everything is thrown out in court, you still have the conduct policy, and they can basically make the argument, well, it looks bad for the NFL that he even was named in this to begin with. So my question to you is the owners. So the rest of the owners, are they sitting there saying, well, this is the guy who keeps beating us in Super Bowls and keeps owning the league? Or do they say, hey, this is one of our guys, and this could happen to, if you're sitting there and you're an owner of an NFL team, you could be in this position someday. You want your fellow owners to back you up and tell Roger Goodell, don't throw the book at him. Take it easy on him. It's a misdemeanor. How does that play into the whole dynamic here?
Well, that's a tough balance as well, because what happened with Deflategate, there were multiple reports that there were owners pushing for a more stringent punishment of the Patriots because there was still lingering resentment that they didn't do enough to the Patriots in Spygate in 2007. And there's going to be resentment. He has kicked everyone's ass for the last 18 years. He has 6 Super Bowl trophies. There are owners out there that don't like it. Now, they're not going to stand up and say, boy, we're glad to see he's getting he's getting something negative happening to his franchise. We can't beat him on the field, so we'll revel in anything that happens that we can feel better about ourselves about. But I think at the end of the day, they need to realize these standards can apply to them as well. And so there's a balance there. But I suspect there'll be some owners who will be behind the scenes trying to stick a knife in Bob Kraft's back, because that's the way, sometimes billionaires operate in a highly competitive environment.
Okay, last big question for you, Mike, and I think I've handled myself very well in this, and also credit to us because this news came out all after we did the show together on Friday, and that was probably the save of your entire career. But my last question to you is, what are the chances that Bob Kraft just says, you know what, it was time already, I'm going to let my son take over the team and walk away, so there's not even a punishment? Like, there can't be a punishment because he's not the owner of the New England Patriots anymore. Because I think if you probably sat down before this even happened, Bob Kraft would have said, the plan is my son is going to take over the team in the next 3 to 5 years, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, that's a possibility. We don't know what he wants out of all this. And for all we know now, he intends to fight it tooth and nail and prove that he didn't do it, that he is innocent. But you look at what happened with Jerry Richardson back in late 2017. I had somebody ask me yesterday, well, could the NFL take away the Patriots, force him to sell the way that they forced Jerry Richardson to sell? They didn't force Jerry Richardson to sell. He chose to do it on his own. And there's no reason to think the NFL would have even had the power to force him to sell. That's what Richardson chose to do once it came to light that there had been some workplace issues that resulted in settlements that had confidentiality clauses. Some of the facts came out. It was embarrassing to Jerry Richardson. So he just said, you know what, I'm going to sell anyway at some point. Let's just do it now. So there's a similarity there. There's a similar thread. The idea that if Robert Kraft Kraft is thinking, you know what, at some point I was going to hand the reins to Jonathan. I may as well just do it now. And if that becomes part of the punishment that he imposes on himself, because again, that's what Richardson did for Roger Goodell. Richardson didn't put Roger Goodell in a tough spot, and this would be a way to not put Roger Goodell in a tough spot as it relates to coming up with some sort of a discipline to be imposed personally on Robert Kraft. And that wouldn't shock me if that's the outcome. Again, for now, though, the indication is they're going to fight this thing, and we'll see if that fight plays out. The court date, the first court date, he doesn't have to be there for this. His lawyer will be there on April 24. That just shows you how slow this process is, Big Cat. I mean, here we are. It's February 26. It's going to be 2 months before there's even that first moment where you walk into court and get scheduling and do the My Cousin Vinny guilty or not guilty routine, and off it goes, and who knows how long it takes in the court system before it finally gets to a conclusion.
Yeah, and reading all the, everything I've read since the report came out on Friday is that Robert Kraft will never have to probably appear in court. So that saves him that embarrassment of a mugshot and a perp walk and all that stuff. So it's going to be one of those stories that will always linger. But I think that the big initial shock has kind of waned off, and we won't have that moment where, it will be like you said, a court filing that will then somehow get to the press and people will read about it, but it won't be that big splash that you'll see where you see Robert Kraft walking into court or you see some big moment in court. None of that's going to happen. It's going to all take place behind closed doors, and we're going to hear about it, but it's going to be 2 months down the line.
Unless he chooses to fight this thing, and at some point there will be a trial. It may be a year from now. It may be 2 years from now. Who knows? But if he decides, I am going to push this to the limit, I can prove my innocence, or there's or some other argument that can be made. It's a high standard in a criminal justice proceeding to prove that guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. If he chooses to do that, and he has every right to do it, then this could take some time, and then at some point he would have to go to court, and presumably and he doesn't have to testify. That's one of the things we all learned from watching TV. And very rarely does a criminal defendant get on the stand to testify, because the chances are you're going to get ripped to shreds by the prosecutor on cross-examination. But at some point, if he does decide he wants full exoneration and there isn't a deal to be struck, then there will be a court proceeding. But I don't think it gets to that. But if it does get to that, I think it's way down the line.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.